quickly share the code if we had to implement the similar system.
ठीक है, बिफोर गोइंग टू कोड मुझे बताओ इसमें क्या इंस्टॉल करना पड़ेगा यार, मतलब थोड़ा सा जस्ट मेक इट
Okay, for running.
हाँ
Okay.
और प्रीरेक क्या है, मतलब इस सब के लिए हाँ क्या क्या चाहिए?
See, prereq, you just need access to some AI model via either Google Gemini or OpenAI, any AI model. And then whatever the programming language you are comfortable, you can select the SDK or ADK available. But for this example, maybe you can have the Node.js. So because I'm going to show all the example in JavaScript, but the same concept or setup will work in Java, Python, Go, all the programming language.
Okay.
My code is visible, correct? I'm sorry. The rack query, which I was trying to explain. So let's say if you have to build a similar thing here, you write a function where you take your user query, correct? Where first thing the question came to user query, then you build any logic to search your document. So whether you use a vector DB or anything, if you see that, okay, it's a simple rule-based search, in the user query itself, if you are able to identify the intent, what they are trying to do, you get that data, and that is outside of your AI. It can be anything. Once you get the data, but generally when you write any request to your LLM, you will have something like this. This is the model, let's say, you are going to use, and this is your system prompt. You'll say that, okay, you are helpful movie recommended assistant. But if you simply add this and ask that, okay, provide me a recommendation to watch a movie today, correct? It won't be able to give you based on your interest. But if you add more context, saying that, okay, this is the data which you have and written from that only, then you will get a meaningful result. So that's what the part which I was showing in that time, where first thing, I have around, let's say, 10 or 20 documents. But that whatever the user has asked a question, that information is maybe present in either one or two document. So instead of adding all the document as a context, first let me refine that, okay, what are the closest document which is available for that query. And that once I'll add a context, then I add, okay, this is the data which you have and the user is asking for this question. It will try to give you the answer from that context only. Yes, Raghav.
VP, so you mentioned about the system prompt, right? So why is it so? As far as my experience goes, there is two roles, right? So when you use the SDK or the client to talk with the LLM, the calls that you make has two particular roles. One is the system, which is the LLM responding back, and the other one is the user. So in this case, is there any particular reason why your first input has a role of system where you explicitly told it like you are a helpful movie recommendation assistant? Why is that something that cannot be put into the user query itself? I can append it to my user query prompt itself, right, in the first place.
Correct. So let's say you are building one assistant for your support team, and if you put everything in the user, so in the system prompt, you control what your LLM model should do. So let's say you in the system prompt, you mention that, okay, this model should only read this context, or this model should only perform this kind of activity. And if user is trying to ask anything outside of that, that you can control it from the system prompt. But if I add complete this thing in the user prompt and I completely remove the system prompt, that will also work. But the difference will be, now this your LLM model is very open, correct? I can ask anything. And first thing, when I will start asking anything, it might create some your whatever we said. It can put some. I'm not able to find a term. Like it can break your image, saying that, okay, down this you build one assistant. Let's say Amazon build one AI assistant, correct? And in that I started asking some questions, and it's giving some weird answer because I'm now providing the more context, which itself is wrong. And then I'm getting the answer saying that, okay, there's the assistant which we got from the Amazon is providing the ROM. So it will put some impact on your branding. Plus, if you don't add any control in the system prompt, whatever the things you want to not do from your AI system, that also you are letting the user to perform.
So you're basically, the way I understand is like you're trying to limit the scope of what the LLM should do from its total broad knowledge base. You're just trying to limit the scope with the system prompt, and you're providing more contextual information, saying that you are only to deal with movie recommendations at this point.
Correct.
So similarly, when you are going to provide, your user query is limited, right? So whatever the user is going to write in plain English is your user query. But then now, let's say you are adding additional context in the form of your search results, right? So will that be part of a system prompt, or will that be part of a user input?
No,
Maybe I think when you proceed, I think we will find the answer to this, because you are going to pass on additional information once you get back the response from your vector DB.
this is the additional info. Context is the additional information.
Oh, okay, I missed it.
So here I searched for a movie. Let's
Mhm.
say maybe if I'll run this, you will see what it's doing. Or I have written that also. So let's say user is asking that, okay, find me a scary movie about ghost, correct?
Mhm.
So now if I simply ask this question to LLM, it can give some random movie also. But I want that, okay, these are the list of movies which have, and also LLM won't be able to, first of all, it will not know that, okay, what are the list of movies available if it is not trained on that. So
Mhm.
we need to provide the context that, okay, what are the movies we have and what is the category, whether it's a comedy movie or ghost means horror movie or whatever. We'll provide all those as a context, and then LLM will say that, okay, user is asking for this movie. So this data fit for that user query, and I'm going to return that only.
Got it.
And that filtering, maybe if we don't want to use LLM, we can put our own custom logic also, correct? Let's say you have a DB of all the movies with all the metadata. You get the first, means you write your own SQL or NoSQL query to get the results where this metadata match. But how you will identify whether you need to search for a ghost movie or comedy movie, that LLM helps us. Otherwise, we need to write some regex to find that, okay, what kind of category they are getting, correct? We are not getting in a JSON format or some structured input where I can easily say that, okay, what should be my filter in my DB. So that's why when you see that, okay, your query is also unstructured and your data might be also unstructured, that time we prefer using the vector embedding.
Got it. Makes sense.
So your movie, whenever you're creating the vector embedding, it will say that, okay, this is the movie name 1 and its category is ghost. So from there only it will try to search here. Once it searches, then you provide the list. At this you can control whether you want to add 10 movies or 20 movies or 100 movies. Only thing, the more number of context you add, it will add additional cost and it might slow down also.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why all the strategy which we decide at the time of creating the vector embedding, that, okay, what should be the strategy to create a chunking, whether it should be based on a word, a paragraph, what should be the overlap strategy, all those things we define. Like if it's a simple SOP document, and if we are saying that, okay, only 10 word, let's assume I'm giving the example, and 10 is coming till here, this is one chunk and this is second chunk. And if we are not adding any overlap, you might see some misinformation. So that's why people try to add some overlap also, like 20% overlap should be there, so that the first chunk will be like till you, the second chunk will be from here, and third chunk will be like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe if we go from step by step, we'll get a better understanding. I
I think maybe let's proceed first.
Mhm.
ये वाला थोड़ा सा we have covered all in the last session also.
Okay. So yeah, so this was the to start with. Is everyone aware of the all this how to integrate the AI in your system with any programming language, or that also I need to cover?
What do you mean? What
Means
which
if
part?
you have to build your system, forget the RAG or anything, you know from where to start. We till now we have only used the Chat GPT or Google Gemini only, but we have not done any integration. Maybe I can show that also, like from where this is working correct. We need to get the OpenAI API key or Gemini key also to make it work. Like last time I was showing you, it was running.
I think वो part छोड़ देते हैं, right? So what you are saying is, let's say I'll have to register on OpenAI or Gemini, and then download that key, right? And that key I have to configure here. And then like we are using the interface, ChatGPT or Gemini UI interface, I can integrate that through a system, right? I think those are recorded from the last session. Maybe we can skip that part.
Sure. So let me then quickly go through from the basics one only, like very quickly. I will not take much time. Just to give saying that okay, everything is in the like we can say the stepwise. So first thing, like whenever we have to build anything, simple LLM, it will say that okay, you select a model and you pass your input, okay, and based on whatever the model is trained, you will get the answer. And then to make it conversation, like it's like a simple one question you ask, you get the answer. But if you have to build any conversation assistant without your additional knowledge, that time what you'll do, you will say that okay, what is your role, and then user asks something. This becomes your first conversation, like this you will call. Then after that, once whatever the response you get, that you store it in some whatever the DB or in memory you want to use. And the next time when user asks the questions, and if you want the LLM to remember what was our previous conversation, you send everything as an input. You don't only send that okay, this is my system prompt and this is the new input. So if you want that okay, what was my previous thing, it also should remember. Then we should keep on sending both system user and whatever the answer you get from the LLM, you add a role as assistant. So again, these things will differ based on whatever the SDK or tool you are using. But I'm giving this example with the OpenAI SDK. Okay. So one for system prompt means what are the things LLM should do, user, what is user is asking, assistant, what is the answer LLM has returned in my previous conversation. And now this is the next time again user is asking, so that it knows that, okay, what is the conversation. So this is simple. In this, it does not have any your additional knowledge. But this, no one wants to build that, correct? Because ChatGPT and other tools are already doing this. Where we want to build our own custom is that, okay, we have my data and I want that data to be available in LLM so that I can ask a question using, means when I ask question, it should understand my data also, correct? So for that, last time, I think when we started first, I told that, okay, now all our LLM models have the capability to understand the tools also. So previously, when we created, we had only model and the input. But now if you want that, okay, it should have some access to the dynamic data, then tools is one way. There are multiple ways. So to start with, we can start with the tools. So you add additional input, the parameters in the tools, and in the tools, you define what are the additional capability you have. So let's say, last time also given the same example. This is like you are trying to say that, okay, if you are building some weather assistant for your some chatbot or whatever the use case you have. But if anyone will ask you, it will not have the answer. So now you are saying that, okay, if anyone is trying to ask whether of a location, then there is a tool available. If anyone is trying to ask the time zone of a specific location, then there is another tool. Like that, you will keep on building multiple tools. This can be applied for your use case for when you're trying to build your conference Jira search. You'll say that, okay, if anyone is trying to ask a document or knowledge related to this category, there is a tool available, and that tool you will execute it. So in this, the important thing is that, okay, what is the type, name, and the description and the parameters. So the names is just like that. Okay, it should be some unique name so that it can be registered in the LLM. And description is that, okay, on what basis LLM should decide that, okay, whether I should recommend to use get weather tool or I should recommend to use get current time. So you provide some meaningful description about the tool. And in the parameters, if that tool accepts some input parameters. So let's say you are trying to build your conference assistant only, but for multiple teams, correct? So let's say if in the input you have a team name, then you can search all the documents related to that team. But if you say that, okay, now you're trying to build any very generic assistant document, means generic document assistant, that time you don't need any input. You will try to get everything directly from the whatever the custom implementation you have to build. So accordingly, you provide your params and you also define the type so that LLM will try to understand that, okay, which word or which character will match for this kind of input. And then you also add whether it's required or optional. So let's say you say that, okay, I can provide a weather location for any means weather for any given location. But if you are not providing the location, maybe I will try to provide some random or some default value. That time you don't need this required. But if you say that, okay, because this tool is you input is location and in your user query location should be there, so you add as some required parameter. Similar way, you can build n number of tools, okay, and all these tools you add it here. Now after that, if user is asking what is the weather like in San Francisco and what time is it there, if you'll simply ask these questions, so this is like making API call. That time I just told you make a HTTP post API call to this model with this request body. So because we are using some SDK, so everything is abstracted as some library methods, you can say. In the response, what you will get? You will get that, okay, I don't have answer for this, but there are some tools available. So maybe I can run this and then we'll see how it works. Okay.
I think one point I want to clarify here, right? So this thing, right? The tool calling again is not done by the LLM, right?
Yes.
The tool calling will have to be done by some process that is running outside the LLM, which is, let's say, in some agenting process or some other process which can intercept this call from the LLM, right? So what we have fed to LLM is that yes, for if you want to fetch weather, there is a tool which exists like this, and this is the input structure of that tool, and this is the output structure of that tool. So whenever user is asking something, you take that input and then you structure that input correctly. Now this input structure has to be intercepted by that tool, right? The tool which is outside of this, maybe the agentic process or something, right? And that has to make a call to let that API or that function call that we are doing outside the system, and then that response again will be intercepted by will be given to the LLM, and then LLM will then answer again in the natural language, right? So tool ka just input and output structuring and then parsing the output and then reading the output, that is done by the LLM. LLM is not actually invoking that tool call. Right, BP? This is correct, right?
Yes, this is correct. Yeah, I was trying to run that code with just a second.
Kunal, I just want to add on this tool call thing or VP. So basically the premise is right. Like the orchestration process is basically responsible for explicitly making the tool call, but it is not necessary for it to read the contents of the LLM, right? So when we integrate an MCP, all these client SDKs that we have, right, basically maintain within them the function declaration. So all you need to do is like you don't need to worry about the output that comes back from the LLM and try to parse it and see what tool is getting called and all. With MCP, that is not needed. But if you explicitly say that return the response to me in the form of a JSON, give me the tool name, give me the tool params, then you would need to do that parsing or worry about it. The orchestrator need to worry about it. If it is an MCP thing, a lot of it will be abstracted because of the client SDKs.
I think got it. Yeah, I think good point to add. Yeah.
Okay, so now let me share my screen again. Yeah, so whatever the code I was showing, I just pasted here in this, my environment was set up. Okay. So now if you see it here, the same thing. I ran this question here. So user is asking what is the weather like in San Francisco and what time is it there, correct? And we told that, okay, you have access to tools. And when I ran, so if you see the output here, it is saying that LLM decided to call tools, and the tools are like this. You get ID, status, argument, call ID, and the name. So it is saying that, okay, you should call one tool called as get weather. In that, you should get the argument as a location as a San Francisco. And then we implement our code saying that, okay, how I'm going to handle this response. So should I return the response immediately, or I should make a call? So I just removed the output at the 0. So now it is saying, because the question was asking for both the information, weather of a location and the time. So it is saying that, okay, you can call these two tools. One for getting a location, weather of location, and one for getting a current time. But if I remove that, okay, I don't want time, correct? I just need a weather of location, then we should get only one tool call. So you're getting correct, like you define that, okay, what are the capability you have, and LLM helps you to decide which tool you should execute. And that logic you add it here, saying that, okay, I have all this output, and this output is in my array, and then I will iterate over to that array, and then whatever the name I get, I will work on it. Means I will make a call one by one, and each answer I will keep on adding, and whatever the tool I called, I will add that, okay, this is the response I got, and this is the role as a tool. So again, it depends on which SDK you are using. So there also they are saying that, okay, the way we had a system, user, and assist. Now the another role is tool. You say that, okay, this is the tool response.
Okay. Okay. So I think again we are using LLM here as a reasoning agent, right? And since it can reason that, okay, what the user is asking in the natural language, and for that what are available artifacts I have, right? And it sees that one of the artifacts I have available is like a tool which can answer this question. So it's kind of just telling, okay, it's able to reason and say that, okay, this tool you can use for answering this question, right? But again, this has to be done by the outside orchestration logic that which Raghav mentioned, right?
Correct. So in this, because we have not used any advanced SDK, just to showcase that, okay, how it is done. But there are like some wrapper written on top of SDKs, which does this thing by default. So instead of we writing all this logic at that time, also we are showing the whatever the, let's say you are using the SDK, if that has a capability to do the tool calling, that will do this calling on behalf of you. So you will not know that, okay, you will at the end, you will directly get the final result.
Got it.
But just for demo purpose, I have used very simple SDK, which is like just making HTTP call. Okay.
Okay.
And this also we will call it. Maybe let me fix this. There is some issue in the code. If the structure, because the library version I updated and their complete thing got updated. So should be response. Tool call, then it has the name directly. So they have removed the function word in the new version.
One more thing that I've observed is maybe like when we try to get the LLM to respond these kind of JSONs, right? At times for simpler instructions, it comes back with proper response, like it gives you a proper JSON structure. But there are cases where if the initial prompt, or let's say the user query is too broad, or the system prompt is too broad, then it returns small form JSONs, and this like the orchestrator is getting confused. How do I parse this and all that? In that case, having MCP helps because it adheres to the protocol. We don't run into these errors very often.
No, that also I will explain. So there are actually multiple ways to do the same thing. So whatever I think you're asking, that is related to the structured output.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, see, MCP is like, if I try to explain in a different way, when you use a tools, you are writing everything in your dedicated to that assistant. But if you want to scale that capability for multiple agents, then you build as a MCP server, so that when you build everything in the same assistant, you are doing vertical scaling kind of thing, correct? All the capability you are keep on adding in one system only. But the same capability of fetching the weather information of location and giving the access to all the LLM clients, you want to do the horizontal scaling, then you expose that as a MCP.
Mm-hmm.
So that instead of you writing all the tool definition in your source code or whatever the place you're writing, this tool can come directly from the MCP server. So here you will not add a tool. You'll say that, okay, you have access to this MCP server. And whatever the SDK you are using, what it does, whenever it will initialize, it will make a init call to that MCP server, and MCP will say that, okay, I have this 20 tool access. So MCP will return this tool definition.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's happening. Other than that, so that's the main problem actually. When we start using any framework, we miss what is the internal of the all these LLM. So internal is only this thing only. You have model input tools, and how you want to export the tools to model. There are multiple ways. One is writing directly in the source code. Second became the MCP. The third became the A2A. So you say that, okay, now I will not expose my MCP only. I have built my custom agent. I want your agent to leverage this. Then you expose via A2A.
Got it.
But behind the scene, they are
लास्ट वाला पॉइंट रिपीट करो यार, एमसीपी के बाद क्या बोला आपने?
हम एमसीपी के बाद अभी गूगल ने लॉन्च किया था A2A प्रोटोकॉल, एजेंट टू एजेंट प्रोटोकॉल.
Okay, अच्छा, okay.
So MCP was meant for all the MCP clients. Let's say this one, any editor which you use or anything which you are building, that becomes a client, correct? And you create your own custom agents. But this agent can run and it can do everything. But if you want to share this complete agentic capability, which the logic which you have already written to handle your use case to other agents, there was no way. So Google came with its own protocol. And then they said that, okay, if all the agents follow this structure, they create their agent card so that each agent know which capability is present. The similar way, you have a tool, so you know that, okay, what are the capability it has. Similarly, when you build the agent card, you say that, okay, there is one agent available which can perform these operations. So now then you build one super agent or the orchestrator agent, say that, okay, I'm going to ask a question about this, but if I don't have access, is there any other agent available to do the same thing or not? And if it knows that, okay, I have done the integration with that agent which can do this thing, I will hand off this request to that agent. So that becomes the agent to agent interaction.
वीपी एक और क्वेश्चन मेरे को ये था, जैसे मान लो आपको मतलब आप टूल दे रहे हो, लेकिन ओनली थिंग इज कि सपोज ये रोलिंग इट आउट टू अ लार्जर ऑडियंस, मान लो एड्स के सिस्टम में आप समझ लो कि हम कुछ डिबगेबिलिटी दे रहे हैं कि टेल मी बजट ऑफ माय कैंपेन, या ऐसा कुछ पूछ रहा है कोई एडवर्टाइजर, राइट? लेकिन हम ये जानना चाह रहे हैं ना कि वो अपना कैंपेन ही एक्सेस कर पाए, तो सम सॉर्ट ऑफ ऑथेंटिकेशन ऑथराइजेशन वाला एंगल, तो वो कहाँ लिखते होंगे इसमें? मतलब वो टूल में लिखेंगे कि भाई ये मतलब ये एक्सेसिबल ना हो इस बंदे को, एटसेट्रा, वो कहाँ लिखते हो लॉजिक?
ओके, वो लॉजिक एक्चुअली आपका इंटरनल टूल इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में भी आ सकता है. प्लस देयर इज वन मोर वे, लाइक ऑल दिस थिंग्स you will expose via some interface, correct? Let's say this is currently I'm running everything in my terminal, but at the end this will be exposed via some API, so that your client can access. When it's getting exposed via API, that time you will have the first thing, all the authentication you will take care of the API, but it's not like that, okay, both the users are authenticated, I am also authenticated, you are also authenticated, but you want to control that, okay, the user 1 should have access to only 4 tools, and the user 2 should have access to only 2 tools. So that time when you designed, you can get that all the request information, whether based on your JWT token or whatever the access mechanism you want to apply, and these tools you can get it dynamic. Like currently I'm just hard coding, correct, all these tools array. So you can have a function which says that, okay, for this user ID or for this permission, what are the tools available? So when the first request comes to your service, it makes a call to your internal tools registry. And from there, it says that, okay, for this user ID or for this role, what are the tools available? You get that tool definition and add only those tools here.
So VP, I think so that is at a API level, right? So at
Ah.
API level itself, you are trying to say that okay, type 1 user, these are the tools available, type 2 user, these are the tools available, right?
Correct.
But internally structure ऐसा होगा कि it's the same API which everybody uses, but there is some authorization happening in that API, right? So that is say that okay, like in this question, right? It could be that for if he is the user and he is asking for his own budget, I will give him the budget, otherwise I'll not give him the budget, right? So how do you pass in that authentication key or authorization key, right? That is important. So that service will automatically take care of that inside. That authorization logic is implemented inside that API. But that API itself, how do you pass on that authentication key, right? That is the question here.
So that will see this request comes from your, it will have your request headers and everything, correct? Whenever it will get called, you have the request headers. And these headers, when you get to know that, okay, you are going to call a function, this execute tool function is there, correct? Where you are going to actually make a call. That time also you will get this as your all these headers here. You will pass from whatever the places you are calling the execute tool, and inside this function you will add the logic that okay, I'm going to call this function. This is called as a get cost data, and in this you will fetch the user ID from the headers. So you get all the parameter which is getting originated from the your original client.
मतलब वही है कि अपना पूरा लॉजिक लिखना है, उसके बाद ये कॉल होना है, मतलब है ना?
हाँ, मीन्स वो तो आपको ही कंट्रोल करना, because LLM will say that okay, this is what you can use. Now, how you want to control, whether you want to simply blindly call with that, okay, it is saying that, okay, you can call this user, means this function with this parameter, but whatever the additional best practice you want to apply, you need to implement by yourself.
Got it.
So here we'll pass this, all this header. And this will go to your execute tool function, and you'll say that, okay, some functions are open for all, maybe some are needs that, and this function will internally take care about that, okay, what I need to do. Means I've not defined this, but here you see it was just returning this data. Here you can add all the logic, whatever you want to control, the way you write your own API.
Okay, so this API registration that also is completely stateless for LLM, right? So whenever you're making a call, every time you have to give this tool information, is it?
Yes, every time you have to give. So that's why they use some other intermediate layer also, like you can keep see, you need to also remember the previous conversation also, correct? Because everything is stateless. So whether you want every time client to send all the whatever the previous message I have, or what they do whenever you start any chat interface, first thing they generate a conversation ID based on what is your user ID and other parameters. They will say that, okay, for this user ID, this is the conversation ID I created, and that you can store it in some Redis or whatever the place. And whatever the conversations you are doing it, you only keep on returning the latest response. And instead of the next time when I ask that, okay, let's say if we take example for the cost only. So first you ask what is the budget for my team. It will give you that, okay, I know your username from your headers and these are the information. Then you ask that, okay, how can I optimize it? Or what are your production or non-production ratio, everything, correct? So how it will remember the previous things, you need to keep on sending everything as an array of all the messages. But you will not expect your client to send every time. So you just say that, okay, this is the conversation I'm having, and all that information, you can store it in your internal database, saying that, okay, how long means how many previous conversations
I
you
think
want
that
to.
part, I think we got it. That is straightforward to understand.
Correct.
So can we move to now agentic wala?
Sure.
Or MCP if you want to build on MCP first and then agentic, right?
Anything is fine. But in this also a lot of things are there. Like, okay, let me directly go to agentic then. But using this tool also, you can create an agent. Okay. So I have written one content also. Let me show you. So see, this is like if you just make one LLM call, it does something and you get the answer. That is simple LLM call. But what the agentic LLM will be like, you make a call and then it first identifies what it needs to do. and it does it, and then again it checks whether my job is done or not. So it runs in you can say in the loop format till the goal is achieved, or you say that okay, my max limit has reached, like you put that okay, how many iteration I need to run and everything, correct? That becomes a agentic application. So that you can build without any agent SDK also, using this also, or you can use any agentic SDK which is available. Like in the Google side, they release the ADK, that is also very good, and even the OpenAI also has its own OpenAI agent SDK. So here also, if you see the basic agent, if I try to compare, in the basic one, we are just making one API call, correct? And it's the same thing if I need to build as an agentic one, what we'll do, whatever the SDK will use, it will say that, okay, you define what is your name, role, model, instruction, and I will do the same thing. But here, a lot of other things will be also there that, okay, if I'm building some tuition assistant, but instead of giving all the capability to one AI teacher, I will say that, okay, there is one agent who is expert in the math, one agent who is expert in the English, one agent who is expert in the science. Like that, you create a number of agents. And if you have to build in the agentic way, like the way we have done the framework, you will have one super agent called as a AI tutor. And if the user questions is for math, it will hand it up to math agent. But if without agent, if you have to build, you will build n number of tools here, correct? You will say that, okay, one tool is for math functions, one tool is for English function, one tool is for science function. And based on whatever the user is asking the questions, I will call that function. And for each functions, again, internally, I can use different LLM. So let's say for English, my GPT 4.1 itself is good enough to give all the answers for English queries or the history queries. But if it's a mathematical questions or it's a research question, I need a different model. So that time you can define what should be my strategy to use a different model for each job. But the concept wise, everything is same. You have just the tools, and the tools you can call it with a different way. Okay, so I'll show you some example here also. So in this itself, so these are the tools available. I created one agent here called as a weather agent, and that was single. This is one weather agent, one is entertainment agent, one is triage agent, correct? And in this is my single agent. Here I say that, okay, you are a triage agent, route request to the appropriate specialist. So if the questions are related to weather questions, you need to route it to weather specialist, movie for this, and then you add as a handoff, which agent I need to hand off. But internally, they all must be doing the same thing. But here, the way you write a code, it becomes simplified. You know that, okay, all the logic which is related to entertainment is separated out, correct? All the logic which is related to weather information or your debugging or PR review, all those things are separated. Then you have create one your simple super agent. And there you add that, okay, what should be your logic to distribute this task to individual agents. So all that instruction you will add it here. Then after that, it will hand it up to there. And there also you need to, then after that, whenever anything comes, so you run this. You say that, okay, all the requests will always go to triage agent. And the question is, tell me a joke and recommend a horror movie. So this agent will decide that, okay, which agent I need to route the request, and it will route it. And then based on that, it will see that, okay, I got the result. And in the result also, there are multiple parameters will be available based on which SDK you are using. So if the result, you say that, okay, result is a final output, you can return directly from here, or you can run this function in a loop with a different set things. So this is just a simple example, but it can be extended with other use case also.
VP, in this use case, is there a central orchestrator which is responsible for, let's say the query comes in, we go to the triage agent, and the triage agent responds with some response, right? Maybe it wants to hand off to a weather agent. So at that time, how is the is the orchestrator responsible for getting the response back from triage agent and then calling the weather agent?
No. So when you use handoff, then orchestrator is not responsible. It's handed off. But when
This
you say
is
that,
some library, is it? Related to new agent.
yes, this is a library, and this comes from the OpenAI agent SDK library only. But again, all these things will depend which agentic library you are using. But the
Got it.
concept was internally they are just making a tool call. And when to stop making a tool call, all these things is the control, like which SDK or ADK use, that gives a better control.
Also, VP, this 160, 161 line, right? So this is kind of agent registry, right? Which agent
Yes.
is responsible to what? So
Means if you don't add this also, then also this library, what it will do,
Mhm.
the library know that, okay, you need to follow this structure and it will try to read the instruction from here.
Okay.
So library has this knowledge also.
No, this point I didn't get. Like, if we don't give, you are saying, then also is it fine?
Yeah, then also it is fine. But we generally give this that, okay, let's say you are building some debugging agent, correct? So you build one agent which can get the information from your Dynatrace, one from Grafana, one from Splunk. Like that, you have a number of specialized agent. And when you don't give this instruction, and when you ask that, okay, there is some issue in my microservice, find it. Then LLM will try, maybe it can randomly route the request to any agent because all are able to do the debugging. But when you add instruction, whatever the strategy you follow that, okay, if first thing I should be always checking my Grafana or I should be always going to that. And then after that, whatever the response I get, I will hand it off to some other agent. That kind of instruction you can add it here so that your agent handoff will be better.
Because hands-off is just a list, right? Anything, any policy it can apply maybe. But here only we have to define the crux, I think, right?
Yes, yes. Here we have to define in which way I should hand off. Otherwise, it will try to guess based on whatever the description you provided. Because you provided that, okay, I can debug anything by using Splunk, correct? Or I can debug anything by using Dynatrace or Grafana or whatever that your tools you use. But which one to I should pick, that all these things we define in the first entry agent so that it should route the request successfully. Otherwise, sometimes what it will say, it can return, because again we know it's not like a static response will always get. It can say that, okay, there are 3 or 4 agents available. Which one I should execute? Then the user has to say that, okay, proceed with the Splunk debugging first. Then it will know that, okay, now user is saying that, okay, start debugging with a Splunk. Then it will successfully hand it off to Splunk agent.
See, why I was asking here, it is very straightforward, no? Text-based, weather is there, so weather specialist, movies there, so entertainment. But in other cases, it might not be that, what do you call, that explicit, right?
Yes, yes. So there we provide proper handoff or proper workflow kind of things.
Correct.
That, okay, this is the way, because when we build any agent, whatever the manual work which we are trying to do, we are trying to create automation for that. And in that, if we say that, okay, these are the my process, then it should follow that instruction.
Okay.
But otherwise, you have a very good engineer who don't know what to do or from where to start. They are expert in something, like you had a very senior experienced engineer, correct? But they does not know how to debug your application. But they are good in Java, they are good in Go or whatever the programming language. They also don't have context about your application. They also don't know what is the strategy which we follow. So they can start random anything actually. So that's why these instructions are very helpful.
Okay.
So can you talk about the agents that you mentioned, right? You said you're using some OpenAI agent here, right? How is the responsibility delegated between agents and LLM here, right?
Means you're saying the internals of this agent library.
मतलब agents or अब agents or LLM जो है, how does that responsibility segregation happen, right? What responsibility will be taken by agents? What will be taken by LLM now?
See, LLM, whatever the responsibility what LLM was doing, that will be there with LLM only. But the agent will take that responsibility which previously we had written by ourselves. Like, okay, I need to make, I got that, okay, LLM is saying that, okay, there are 2 tools available. I'm writing everything by myself, correct? When to call that API or what tools instead of should I return the answer? That part is now taken care by the your agent SDK.
Okay. Okay, got it. So वो जो tool calling के बाद जो intercept करने के बाद हो रहा था, that part has been taken by agent. But now this agent is again, are you going? Are you planning to go into the agent? I just wanted to know how does it do all these things.
नहीं मतलब इसका तो सारा I think everything is already available in their official website. I think if I have to go the internals, I need to just simply go through their README file or the developer API document only. Whatever the means parameters or the configs options are available, correct? How to get the better one. But otherwise, it's very straightforward. And this is one example, but mostly I preferred using the Google ADK. That gives a better control actually.
So maybe what I wanted to know right now, these tools could be an API call. It could also be a database call, right?
Yes.
Or it could be maybe different protocols, right? REST, gRPC, वगैरह वगैरह. So, and I think there could be more to this category. So how all those things are taken care by this agent, right?
Yeah, when you create that agent, that time it's not like everything is taken care by default. So now if I show you this actual thing, so this is one agent, correct? Weather agent. This is one entertainment agent, okay? And this was our triage agent. Here we see it's very simple. But when I go the internals of the weather agent, so I told that, okay, these are the tools available. And I also mentioned that, okay, where is the implementation? So I'm just saying that, okay, whenever this tool comes, LLM is saying that I need to go to this agent. I don't need to manually write a function to call that tool. I told that, okay, at the time of definition, it's defined here, and it will automatically call that function, this SDK. That is the only benefit. Otherwise, if you see, rest of the thing will remain same. You are defining the tools, but now you are not writing a logic, reading the LLM response, and then identifying what is the function name, then doing a JSON.parse of these params, correct, what you're getting, and then making a function call, getting the response back, and then again making LLM call. All these things which we were doing before agent SDK will be taken care by this SDK. Agent is just a term, if I say.
Agent is more of a wrapper around the LLM, or it's like a superset. So only you just call the triage agent and that's it. So triage agent calling weather agent, and maybe it sends whatever mechanism it uses, right? It is going to, let's say, send a text or make a HTTP call to the other agent. The other agent will feed it to its underlying LLM, in this case GPT-4o mini. Whatever response comes back, it is responsible for. We have given what are the tools available to the weather agent. So if there is any tool calls, so the weather agent is responsible for making the tool calls, feed it back to the underlying LLM of the weather agent. Then once the response is final, it is going to give it back to the triage agent or send it back to the user. So agent is more of a wrapper or a superset of the underlying LLM. Can I say that, PP?
Yeah, correct. So we just call it agent because now it's doing multiple things on behalf of something. It's not simply like I ask something, I get answer, but it is able to do multiple things. So we just given a name of agent, but that you can get it done without agent also. Let's say when you are building a RAG, correct? That time also you can say that, okay, first search a document. Once you find the document, then apply these changes. Once you applied the changes, then notify me. So all these steps you will define in a separate tools.
Okay, and how do you define this, right? Because to me it looks like it's not like one workflow, right? If it could be a simple workflow, then it's easy to define. But it could be, let's say, multi-step. It could be a different orchestration depending on the response and all. So how do you define these things? Agent is also, let's say, it understands natural language, it can reason and all, or it does not have those capabilities, right?
Okay. So there actually, if we go to the internals of this agent, what it will do, it will take that, okay, and where is that? This is the file only, no, yes. So the instruction which we have it here, and all these tools definition. But here the example is very simple. Let me find a very complex one. then I will be able to explain. But internally, everything is using LLM only. Just give me 1 minute, okay?
Kunal, I didn't understand your question. Sorry.
So what I'm saying is, so what you guys said is that agent is a wrapper here, and then it can basically orchestrate some workflows there, right? So there is the workflow is like you call this tool, you get that response. That response could be that, let's say, processed by the same agent, or it could be handed over to another agent, right? Now, all these things could be very complex. It's not like a series of steps which I can onboard, right? So maybe it requires some reasoning that, okay, some response I have got, based on this response I need to do A, or I need to do B, right? So how do you onboard all these things into an agent? Does it have that reasoning capability and all?
No, by default, I don't think it will have. We just need to add in instructions only that, okay, this is the job of your, let's say, one agent. If you're debugging, discussing about the debugging agent, let's assume, you will add that, okay, these are the instructions which you can do. And after that, whether that should be the final agent or I can also hand it off, that also you can define it in the definition of this agent. You say that, okay, my job is done. Now I'm going to hand it off to the next agent. So that you can do it here the way we did it here, this place. But everything we need to write by ourselves in the instructions.
VP, I also have a similar question to that of Kunal's. Basically, if the orchestration inside the weather agent is complex, right? I'm just trying to make up. Let's assume that so the weather agent has to imagine that this tool is not there. The get weather tool is not there. It has to basically work based on a document. So through some RAG, assume that it has to. So whenever any call is made to the underlying LLM model of the weather agent, we want to pass additional context. Okay.
Okay.
So how would we do that? Basically, it needs that it needs additional context whenever any query is going to the underlying LLM model of the weather agent. So how would I orchestrate that flow here?
Okay. So again, I think for that, let me open the official documentation of this. So there are the things that, okay, what are the inputs I'm getting from my previous agent and how I'm going to store the output. And then when you implement a tool, so there also you can have it currently we just shown you this has only one tool, correct? You can add multiple tools here, and one tool is for fetching the whatever the context which is required. Once you get the context, then it can hand it off to your actual execution tool. So that you can define in your instruction that, okay, what should be the strategy. Just give me 1 second. I'm trying to find what is the config name for that. I'll show you that, how it works.
Yeah, something will be there. Even the triage, what he was showing, no? So there also some, if it is complex, no? So some different syntax or some different way will be there, no? Like
Yes, just a second.
If we manually do the agent-to-agent communication via our own orchestrator, obviously there is a possibility for us to handle all these complex workflows. But with the library itself, maybe if the OpenAI library itself provides such capabilities, then it may be much easier.
1 second. My long tab got shared. Just a second. Okay. So I think we were discussing about how to provide the additional context to the agent itself, correct? One thing was that, okay, we have the tools we know that, okay, this is the tools you can call, but the context wise, there is a way that, okay, whenever you are running, you can provide additional context, and that you can fetch it from a different place, like whether it can be your document or anything. And that context which you set, whenever this tool is getting executed, that time the tool will also have access to this context data. So here you can say, I'm trying to say that, okay, there is a tool to get the user age, but my agent currently does not have the access to what is my username, correct? Maybe it has access if I provide a user ID or something else, but instead of directly making call, if I want to get some additional information to be shared across agent, I will add in the context, and whatever the tools my LLM decide that, okay, I'm going to execute that tool, and that tool will need two things: some of the input parameter, it will get it from your user query, and other information which you required to execute that tool, that you will get it from the context. So instead of directly returning this, you will make call to your DB or API with the additional context and the parameter which you have asked for. Is it clear?
Does the context come into play when there is a tool call? Because according to my example, even if there is no tool call, I should be able to give context to the LLM.
That if there is no tool call, then you will add the context in the system, means the instruction part.
Okay.
Because without tool, so your agent, what it will do. And this tool also you can define it like that, okay, I want to always force, let's say you are just building a simple agent, correct? So for tools also, there are a lot of parameters available, whether it should auto detect or it should be like which one tool to pick. All these things you can define it. Let me forcing tool use. So there are three things like auto, required, and none. So the LLM must not call a tool. That time you can set as a none, and the required, it must call at least one tool. And the auto means LLM decide whether to use a tool or not. Like that, each SDK will have its own configuration. We just need to go through all the documents of whatever the SDK you are going to use, and you will get to know that, okay, how to control. So whether I saying that, okay, in the model setting, the tool choice should be auto or it should be none, all these things, and how you can prevent the infinite loops. Again, all these are like internals when you start using the SDK. So that's why I'm not going everything because most of the people will not use this. They might go with the Python SDK or something else. So there is no point of discussing everything, but the concept wise, whatever the SDK you'll use, they will have all this capability in different way. And how you are going to do the handoff, all these things also they will mention that, okay, which agent I need to hand off, tool name override, like multiple things will be there on handoff. What are the things I need to do? What should be the input type filter? Whenever you're doing the handoff, there might be way you might need to hand off with some input data, correct? So everything can be done based on which SDK you are using, and each SDK documentation will have to achieve the similar thing with a different way, but uh, mostly everything can be done. And
Yeah, I think we can proceed.
one thing I was also trying to show that
MCP also did we cover like any time earlier?
no, I think today only we were supposed to cover MCP also.
Because it will be somewhere in between, I think, right?
Yes, it was for today only. Just give me a second. Maybe for last 30 minutes we can focus on MCP.
I think let's focus on MCP now. MCP.
Just give me 1 minute.
I think somebody has worked on MCP, Raghav, right? If you have worked, maybe you can just give an overview for 1 or 2 minutes before BP joins.
Yeah. I also have not delved into it too much yet, but I can give you overview. So MCP servers, right? So basically that gives you the capability, or it is a standard protocol when the LLM wants to get some information about something, right? It can talk to the MCP server. And with MCP protocol, it's like, let's say you have a basic web service, and there's a lot of libraries available today which helps you create a MCP server. You just give your annotations on top of your endpoints, and that basically helps the LLM know what are the kind of tools that you're exposing. So with that existing documentation that you provide on top of your endpoints, what happens is initially when the user query comes in, and you're about to make the LLM call, at that time, basically what you do is you go hit the MCP server, whichever you've configured with, and try to get all the tool information. Basically, that gives you the tool documentation. Let's say you have a get weather MCP tool, which takes in a parameter of, let's say, the city, state, and a country. So you get the information about what that MCP tool is for, and that is sent along with your request. Whenever you're making the actual LLM call, this MCP tool info is passed on to the LLM, and along with your query. So based on the user query, the LLM comes back with a response, and in that response, it is going to come back and tell you that I need to invoke this particular MCP tool because I want to know the what is the weather in Bangalore today. So it will tell you in that structured format. As part of the response, it will tell you the city is Bangalore, state is Karnataka, country is India. And once that response is received, we can basically look at the response, say response.tool call is present. Then you can use an MCP, again another library. The MCP client can be used to invoke the actual API or the endpoint, and that can be let's say any communication, right? And once the response comes back from that MCP tool, you again feed it back. The orchestrator is responsible for feeding it back to the LLM again. So the only thing that you get as an advantage from your manual tool calls is that things are standardized. So initially, whenever you are setting up a MCP server, like VP said, there is an init call that happens when you're trying to. So there is a init call, there is a list tools call, and there is a invoke tool call. So it basically has 3 APIs, and using that, the appropriate action happens. This is from my maybe I'm speaking at a very high level. This is my understanding.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So as I mentioned in the starting also, the MCPs are nothing but you are exposing your tools via some different way. So one is like in MCP also there are mainly 2 things. You can expose via HTTP protocol, like following the SSE, server side event or server sent event. And the second thing is that your standard input output, like you can run the MCP server directly locally in your client itself. And if all the outputs your MCP server is printing in the console or a system, then your MCP client can read it. So these are the 2 ways, but there are multiple libraries available. I will show you. I have written one MCP server without any library just to understand how exactly MCP servers are getting created if we are using any library. I'll try to show that and we'll try to explain. Okay. So let me know if you can see the code. So this is one example of creating MCP server without any library. And let's say you want to expose the MCP server. There are multiple libraries available. We'll go through that also. But let's say if you have to create MCP server, which is HTTP, you will deploy, and what are the things will be required. So first thing, it should always have a one get endpoint. Means whatever the, for MCP, you will always say that, okay, it's hosted in your abc.com/MCP, correct? So it should have expose the get, it should expose the post, and it should also expose the options. So when we use the library, all these things will be automatically taken care. But when I'm explaining, just to see, these three methods are mandatory. And in the get, what we do, we say that, okay, what are the capabilities this MCP server will have? And for that also, we need to always return in this structure. It should always have the name, version, the description, and the tools. Here, the name is your MCP server name, and each MCP server will have the versioning, so that let's say if tomorrow you are adding a new version, you can control that also, so that your MCP client also knows that, okay, there's new version available, I should refresh the tools. So sometimes MCP client will cache the response of this get. So every time when you initialize a connection, it will not try to make a get call to your MCP server and get the list of available tools. They will have the caching thing also. Okay. So you provide name, description, what does this MCP server do, and what are the capabilities which are available, the tools. These tools are the only thing which we should be knowing if you have to build anything. So now these tools I can write in three ways, correct? One, directly in my agent, the AI application. Second, via MCP, or third, via providing integrating with external agent. And the tool definitions will be also similar. Let's say if I go to the capabilities which are available, we'll say that, okay, I will define all the tools. So where you will add all the registry, means what are the tools are defined. Just a second, it comes from service MCP tool registry. Okay, so I think that will be creating problem for me. Just give me a second. But the tool registry is nothing but the similar thing, whatever the things you define that, okay, what is the tool name, what is the category and agent. But let me find another way to explain that. Just a second. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the tool I will share after this call. But the structure will almost similar the way we were creating the tools previously, which will have the name, description, input parameters, what are the types, everything will be there. You get all those tools and you define that, okay. But there will be some difference. You can have a function which should always return the name of the tool, the description, and what are the input schema, and if it accept type property required. Okay. But in the properties, it needs to follow one structure. That structure is like that. So mostly all the tools use the JOD schema for doing the validation. So there also you see that, okay, what is the type, string, array, boolean, number, object, everything. So because I have not used any library, so I have written everything. But mostly when you use the library, this code you don't need to write. This is just to understand how the MCP servers are written. Okay. And yeah, once you have the tools, so this is like whenever your MCP clients get, first thing it makes a get call to get what are the tools available. Now it knows that, okay, if I'll use my AI editor and if I'll ask, it will know that, okay, what are the tools available? So that if the question comes related to something which whatever the model you have selected in your editor, it does not know, then I will try to route the request to that tool via that MCP server. And in that tool also, you will call that, okay, how to execute, correct? Because when we are writing our code, it was getting executed in my side, like in the client side where the agent was defined. But when we expose as a MCP server, you also need to handle the execution part. So that, okay, you got that, okay, your MCP client is saying that, okay, I need to call this tool with this parameter, but whatever the setup is required to make a call, it's not available with me. So you say that, okay, I know that, okay, I can execute, and your MCP server will handle that execution part also. And there will be one thing, the post part. So in the post also, you will have a multiple. So when you integrate with your MCP server, it makes multiple calls actually. First thing, the initialize part, where you initialize your all the MCP. There also this structure will matters. Then every time you keep on getting some notification that, okay, what is the status, whether tools have been initialized, not initialized. Then when the MCP client is saying that, okay, give me the list of tools. So always it will make some post call only with different body. And then whenever you're creating your MCP server, you handle it. You'll say that, okay, if I getting the request body as it getting client is asking to get the tool list, I will return this. If client is saying that, okay, now I know that, okay, this is the tool, you go and call this tool with this parameter. So again, the request from your client will come to your backend with the body as a method called as a tool/calls, and it will say that, okay, which tools you need to call with which parameter, and then you will execute the tool part. And because your client will need that, okay, whether I'm connected with that MCP server or not, so you need to expose you need to handle the ping also, that, okay, whenever your MCP client is keep on sending the request, you should keep on responding so that it knows that, okay, it's connected. And otherwise you just handle at the 404 so that you know that, okay, this tool I cannot handle it. But these are the internals of MCP server. But again, we will never be writing all these things. We mostly will be using the SDK which are present to create an MCP server. But internally, MCP does the same thing. And if you see this code, you will get a clear idea, correct? I don't need MCP server. Our MCP server is not a hard dependency for me to build any agentic application. Because at the end, it is just doing the listing of the tools that I can define directly without any SDK. It is making a tools call, so that also I can do it. But instead of, if you want to scale your system, then people expose via MCP server, so that everyone should not write. And for that, mostly people use this mod website only. Just a second. So I also referred this official website, like the MCP one. So where you will see multiple things, what is MCP and all the things which I explained. So you have your MCP client. It can be anything. It can be a chat interface or any ID or any applications. Then whatever the data you have available with your system, that instead of you exposing as a simple REST API, now you are exposing in a MCP protocol format, so that it can be integrated with the LLM. But behind the scene, you are just making a HTTP server which handles your post request. And you are not simply sending that request response. You are opening that connection so that you can keep on streaming whatever the partial response you are keep on getting. But that's the MCP. Internal, we can go to details, what it does, what are the MCP SDK available or not. But that is MCP. Sorry, I was audible or not?
You're audible, VP. Yeah.
Yes.
Any questions? Maybe now you can take a call based on this, that, okay, if you have to build anything, what is missing? Maybe you can think about your use case that, okay, you want to build some agentic applications, but maybe previously you're not knowing, but now at least you should be able to correlate, correct? That, okay, if I need to build this, I just need this setup. And I can do it without MCP, with MCP, with agent, without agent, even without any SDK also. I can simply build my own service with just make HTTP call. Like in our initial session I just showed, these SDKs are not doing anything, just making a HTTP call, and instead of we generating our request body, this SDK provides a way to control that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's it from my side. Maybe you can start discussing some other things or whatever the other doubts we have for next 10 minutes, and then some questions. Or any use case which you have, maybe we can work on the high level design, and then maybe in the next call or offline people can work on it. And if they got stuck at some point, we can again have a different session where we can unblock. But if you get hands off of that, okay, tools, then you can do anything. You don't need to think that, okay, I don't know agent, I don't know MCP. You just say that, okay, there is LLM API, I need to make a call, and how to provide additional context. This is the tools. You should be able to read the response of that API call and then take a decision again. Like there is a term called as a think, plan, act. I need to find exact term. The LLM also does the same thing. And these SDK just help us so that we don't need to do by ourselves.
Yeah, I think wonderful session, maybe. So you have covered agentic, you have covered MCP, and you have covered tool calling. These three aspects you have covered the last in this session.
Yes.
Okay, any questions anyone has? on this?
VP, did you have some? Okay, I think you showed us about. Did you have a hands-on code around the Milvus DB? What is that called? Vector DB.
Yes.
Vector DB aspect as well.
No, I just know that, okay, how to insert the data and how to search the data.
Okay.
So I come from front-end background. So I know that, okay, which embedding model I can use and what are the parameters or the whatever the we say. Means I tried with multiple results whether the top 3 is working or top 5 is working, the 20% overlap is working for my use case or 10%. All this you can say hit and trial I did. That's the only thing I know. But I think the internals we have Kunal and others. They can explain you better.
Yeah. So I think Raghav, we will cover vector databases also. That is also part of the AML plan. So their vector database we will go into in depth, right?
Cool. A very informative session, VP.
Thank you. So yeah, whatever I have done, I thought to just share. But in my experience, tool is the only thing which you should know that, okay.
VP, have you also, let's say, gone into these frameworks which are available, right? Now, let's say LangChain Vagera. Have you explored these also?
Yeah, I explored all the framework, and then at the end, my thing is that if you are building any system for production ready, then don't use any framework.
Acha.
But for MCP and prototype, you can go with any framework, or Google ADK is very good for doing the MVP. Let me share my screen. There you don't need to worry about that, okay, how to create a UI, anything, correct? You just start focusing on creating your agentic capability. Like what one line of code, it just run the complete UI with all the chat interface, and there you can define what is your agent name, what query you are asking. You can start debugging internally what is making call, everything, which step is taking more time and how its call is happening. So this Google ADK provides a lot of good capability, and it's very easy to use also. So till now, I've seen this can go till production, but my recommendation is go without any framework like LangChain or LangGraph. Always go with the library, where instead of you writing everything, it can abstract, but you have a complete control. Because if you have seen that when I was showing the agent example, there is no clear thing where the instruction is getting added, where the context is getting added, correct? It is doing everything. I need to understand that complete documentation. But when I use a simple OpenAI library, not a framework, just to making HTTP call. There I know that, okay, at what step, what I'm doing, what response I'm getting. So if I have to do any debugging or anything, it is in good control. But this one is very good, the Google ADK. Because you get complete thing, correct? I ask what you can do. It is saying that, okay, I can assist you with. Then I ask what is the weather today. So it is able to do everything. I just need to keep on adding, and their official documentation is also very good. So yeah, if you are starting directly, you can start with the ADK. So from the day one only, you are writing the agent. You are not going with directly building some simple. And using this, you can build a simple RAG application. You can build anything, and also like a lot of other things you get, like uploading a file. It has you can use your microphone. If everything you have to build by yourself, it will take a lot of time. So for prototype and MVP, or if you're trying to see that, okay, whether your use case is going to add a value or not, you can start with ADK. Once you say that, okay, this the solutioning part which you're trying to do, it's good, then you can see that, okay, should I continue with this or I need more control? That time we can decide to write our own custom implementation, but this one is very good, ADK. Otherwise, we have a line graph, crew AI. I tried everything. Again, that's my personal input only, based on my experience, but it's up to that. Correct, like what is your comfort about how much time you want to invest on building that? You want to focus on building the agentic capability, or you want to focus on writing the platform thing by yourself? But this is,
I think. Any questions, or maybe we can do a quick quiz, right? VP left here, dropped out. Okay, VP, yeah, I think you joined. So if you can generate the quick quiz, right? Maybe 20 questions like last time. You can quickly go over that.
okay.
You can stop recording, Kunal.
Yeah.